If you're a new Overwatch 2 player, picking a new tank hero can be a very difficult challenge. This is the only list you will need because I have used stats to prove my points. Let's kick things off with Ramattra. Hey, editing David here. I did not realize that I didn't grab screenshots the day that I recorded the video, so these screenshots are gonna be just ever so slightly different for the numbers part of it. The picks are still just as valuable, and honestly, the numbers aren't all that different. According to Overbuff, Ramattra has a 1.24% pick rate and a 53.76% win rate. Now, what does that actually mean? Basically, any hero that has an over 50% win rate is very strong and is likely to get nerfed, but they still don't take away the fundamental things that a hero has in their kit. Ramattra, for instance, has a really good cooldown rotation that I don't think a lot of people understand. I haven't selected any of my perks yet, but as our shield is up, we can just kind of keep doing damage, and now we use our punchy form. That's what I always like to call this. I don't care what other people want to call it. You use your punchy, you use your block, you use your punchy, right? Use your punchy. Well, guess what? Now your shield's back up. And it's almost a perfect cooldown rotation to where if you play your cards right and keep near cover, you can then go right back into punchy form. There's a very small window in between that where good Ramattras are going to struggle. And that is what I'm telling you. If you can get to the point where you can use your cooldowns and juggle them well on Ramattra, you are going to see his strength come out heavily. Now, his biggest weakness is probably what you've noticed, especially in this form here. The Omnic form, I believe, is what they refer to as this. The other one being the Nemesis form. It's relatively low damage output. It may seem pretty quick, and if you can hit all headshots, then yeah, of course, any damage is quick, but it really is not that quick, especially if you're just hitting body shots. For demonstration purposes, let me show you. If I just hit body shots, it basically tickles these robots, and it's not like in a good way either. Of course, I'm not going into a huge amount of detail in this particular video on how to play these heroes. I would strongly recommend you check out the description for all of them. There will be a guide for each of them that I have handpicked for you to watch. Let's move on to Sigma, who has been an insane tank for a very long time. Definitely hasn't been an S tier tank really at any point, but is a solid A tier, high B tier at the worst case scenario. Sigma has a higher pick rate than Ram and just a slightly lower win rate. That's a 1.76% pick rate and a 51.82% win rate, and that is just because I think Sigma is incredibly consistent. The biggest strength that he has is going to be his mobile shield. You can place your shield, and this is something that, as I've learned Sigma, this is actually one of my main 3 heroes personally. As I have learned Sigma, I have realized the power of that shield is such a big deal to Sigma and mastering him well. Obviously, he has other skills and abilities that if you can get them down as well, like just actually hitting your shots, he can do really good work with just damage output. But his shield can be used in so many ways. There's the obvious one where you can just put it out here and it blocks damage. Now, the biggest thing that I would recommend, that if you're going to take one thing away from this Sigma section, this is what you want to take away. Do not just use your shield for yourself. Like, if let's say I'm sitting right here, I'm not just gonna put my shield in front of me like that. Instead, when I can put it back up, I'm actually gonna put it all the way in front of that person and get in here and do the damage I need to. Doing that allows you to for sure force the angle out. So if it's like an Ashe or Widow and you put the shield up, they now have to move on either side in order to actually do damage. Versus if you just put it right out in front of you, sure, you're protected and anybody right next to you is, but by pushing that shield all the way to where the damage is coming from, you have a much better coverage. The biggest weakness by far on Sigma, though, is that he is very susceptible to high burst damage compositions. Think compositions like Junkrat with Pharah, and you don't see that a ton, just those two together, but either of those two, my shield only has 700 HP. That's gonna get destroyed in like 4 shots from either of those two. Now, obviously, if you're playing well, you can get up there and use your grasp, which is what sucks in all of the incoming projectiles and it turns it into overhealth for you as well. But with a Pharah or Junkrat, they're going to be fairly mobile, and catching all of them is not very likely, and any hero that has a high damage output that's like a huge burst is not something that Sigma is going to do very well. Once again, I'm only going into the basics for these heroes, and I would strongly encourage you to check out the description. There are going to be some incredible guides for each of these heroes. Let's move on to Junker Queen, which is another grossly underrated tank just because she doesn't have a shield, especially in lower ranks. People don't quite understand how to play her. Junker Queen has a 1.2% pick rate and a 51.3% win rate. So you're going to see a really high win rate and a decent pick rate out of that as well. Junker Queen's biggest strength by far is her ability to sustain herself with a bunch of her combo abilities, like that rampage. It's not rampage. Rampage is the ultimate, but you get what I'm saying. This button right here, that one. What do we call that? We're gonna pretend we're professionals and that you guys didn't see this, okay? That would be Carnage.
You didn't see anything, right?
And Commanding Shout even gives you a little bit of overhealth, which allows you to have temporary movement speed, as well as the added bonus of some extra, lack of squishiness, as it were. Now, the biggest weakness that Junker Queen's gonna run into is what I mentioned earlier, is that she has no shield, and especially in lower ranks, there are a lot of people who, while you can play without a shield, no problem, there are gonna be a lot, like a disproportionate amount of people that are just upset with you for playing Queen because they don't have anything to hide behind. They don't realize that you can just do this right here. This is how you, by the way, deal with a no shield tank. You just, oh, hey, look, they're doing damage. Oh, shoot, they're gonna start shooting. I should move over here. It's called cover. Super wild concept that I don't think a lot of low rank players especially understand. But Junker Queen is a force to be reckoned with. You see what I did there? Do you see it? Did you get my joke? Yeah, honestly, I'm upset with myself for making that one too. It's not just you. Again, make sure you check the description for a complete guide on Junker Queen, because I'm telling you right now, Junker Queen is one of those that if you can get her down to a science, you can absolutely mop lobbies with her, especially in lower ranks. Let's move on to my second best recommendation for right now, especially, which is Reinhardt. Reinhardt is one that I have slept on for quite a while, but he is a really good hero when he's in a good spot. That's just the cold hard reality. That, and in these lower ranks we talked about earlier, it's a very big deal that you have a shield, because you're gonna avoid the tilt that happens sometimes from teammates who say, oh, but I had no shield, my tank would not swap to a shield tank. You just avoid that altogether. He is a very strong hero. Ryan has a 2% pick rate, which is the highest so far on this entire list, but also one of the lower win rates, but he's still at a 51.12%, which is insane for Ryan. He hasn't been in a place like that for a very long time. Reinhardt's biggest strength is just the fact that he's a big German metal tank dude that is just scary as crap. Like, he's literally just an intimidating presence, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, is there are character design things that will help you just because he is legitimately a scary scary presence to deal with. I don't know how else to describe him, but in an unironic way, he just is a very brawl heavy tank. If you can get in there and get like really close like this, get a pin, get a pick early, and then get a nice shatter down, get in there, get these kills mopped up, right? It's super fun. And I think that's the other thing, is just the hamburger swing is such a simple concept, but that's also his biggest weakness. His effective range is such a weakness, and on particular maps especially, there's just very little ways, unless you're LH Cloudy, to actually play this hero. He's very hard to play in certain maps especially. Again, I'm gonna keep saying it so you don't miss it. Make sure you check out the guide that I've linked for you in the description. Now, for the moment I have all been waiting for. Zarya. Zarya has the highest pick rate out of every single one of these heroes right now at a 2.33%. She also just barely clears the 50% win rate. And I'm telling you right now, if you can get Zarya down to a science, you will be thankful you did. Now, I'm a little biased with Zarya, and I'm going to spend a little bit more time on her consequently, and that is because I am actually a Zarya main. I'll throw a little screenshot on the screen for you right now as far as how many hours. I know I'm over 100 now in competitive. You wouldn't be able to tell right now because I have like no charge, but like, what are you gonna do? You can't really, what are you gonna do? Just sit in front of these guys until they charge you, right? I mean, I don't know. It's just, I feel like it just takes too long. Look at this, 7. This is not normal in game. This is not normal at all. Normally you get a lot better situation for higher charge, but that is definitely her strength, is just raw damage output, without a doubt. One of her biggest areas of weakness though is that she has very short windows where she can actually utilize that damage, because essentially, let's call it, I have 100 charge here. I have one bubble, I go in, And I have another bubble now, and I can go ahead and self-bubble twice. Well, on the second bubble, I actually need to be out of here before it's either burst or it expires, because I cannot do anything else once I have got that bubble gone. Which, I mean, to be fair, a lot of tanks struggle with these kinds of things, but Zarya, I just feel like, has a particular struggle that none of the other tanks really do. Wait, isn't there a way to do this? Yes. Okay, here we go. I can show you now. I don't know why I didn't do this. You get the self bubble. Now we have 82 charge. Anything over 100 charge. Look at this damage output. You were seeing how slowly almost every other tank was actually doing damage. You can now see just how crazy the damage output can be from Zarya. Even though I've given you a bit more information on Zarya versus the other tanks, I will definitely include another wonderful guide in the description for you. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss these. For those of you that are new, I just recently returned to Overwatch 2 after a brief hiatus when Season 15 was released myself. And if you're curious as to what made me come back, you'll want to check out this video right here, where I share those reasons as to why I came back to Overwatch 2 after making such a big announcement that I was going to leave in the first place.